Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. We're not the only one you need. You are. We just show you how to get out of your own way. With your host, speaker, author, business coach, and consultant, David Dubé.
Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. It's your host, David Dubé. So excited to have you here with me today. In this episode, my friend, we are going to be talking about incongruencies when it comes to communication, which is one of the hurdles that we often go through when it comes to constant and consistent communication and being understood or understanding another. So when there's incongruencies and inconsistencies, we break up communication. And when you break up communication, we're invalidating or being invalidated. So what is this? How do we realize this is going on? Break it down so it's no longer there. Now, before I go into the specifics of this, I want to recommend you go back and listen to at least episode 50. And if not, make sure you go back and listen to 53, 54, 55, 56, and episode 57. All of those are dealing with communication. Specifically, number 50 is about your learning style. And there's something important that I'm going to share with you about incongruencies that deal specifically with that episode. So if you haven't heard it, make sure you go listen to it before listening to this one. So incongruencies affect all of us in communication all the time. Here's the thing. There's four or five phrases you may or may not hear from someone when it comes to you and them, or your party and their party. So in an individual conversation with someone, you may hear something like, "You're not hearing me, you're not listening to me, you're not seeing me, you're not understanding me." Okay? Those are four things that one might say. And the other part might be, you don't understand me, or you don't get the feeling that I'm trying to share with you. What all these things are saying is that you, my friend, are conversing with someone who's probably in a different learning style from yourself, which is slightly different than the communication style, which I go over in 54, but they do coincide. And the biggest part about this is the vocabulary that's being used. The vocabulary isn't being reported the same way it's being shared. What do I mean by reported and shared? Shared is, I'm telling you, you're not hearing me. You are repeating back to them, I see what you're saying. There's an incongruency between those two words. Let me phrase that for you, or put that into context for you. Is hearing and seeing the same thing, yes or no? No, they are not. So if they're saying hearing and you are saying seeing, you are speaking two different languages. Yes, they both are probably English, but you're speaking different languages. Here's the deal. You are a different learning style than they are. When you're not repeating things based upon their learning style, there's an incongruency in the messaging. When you're aware of this, you can break it down and you can use the same verbiage they're using. You will then be understood, or they will feel understood. That's so important to congruency in conversation. Using their words as you heard them. That's massively powerful, and something you need to begin doing when it comes to communication. All right, let me talk about another form of incongruency in conversation. Another form of incongruency in conversation is energy. If their energy is really low and your energy is really high, there's going to be no effective communication, period. None. Zero effective communication. The reason being is you cannot relate to someone who's in a different frequency than you. I'll give you an idea of what I mean by that. All right, let me make this hopefully make a little more sense. The way I want to do that is I want to relate this to like radio stations. So if 89.9 is country and 100.3 is rock, are those the same thing, yes or no? Obviously not. And they're tuned to different frequencies, are they not? So country is 89.9 and rock is 100.3. Those are two different tuned stations. One's higher than the other. And so you're not going to get the same thing when you're tuned to two different stations, are you? And that's essentially what that is like. So if someone comes in and they're angry or they're upset or they're sad, and you're coming at them with like excess enthusiasm and joy, do you think you're going to be at the same position? You're going to get the same meaning out of it? So they might be like, why is this person antagonizing me so much? Why are they trying to get under my skin? When you think about this, when you were angry last and someone tried cheering you up, didn't you want to just punch them in the face and say, dude, shut up? Like, why are you so happy? You don't deserve to be happy. Like, we get that way when we're angry. I've been there before. I know what it's like. When you're angry, you're not happy, you don't necessarily want to be, you do sort of want to be happy, but you also don't want them to be as happy, right? You don't want that person to be as happy as they are. Albeit you shouldn't be as angry as you are. You still don't want them to be as happy as they are. It's just the way it works. So if you're tuned so differently, you're not going to hear each other. You'll hear what they say as the happy-go-lucky person. You're going to be like, well, you could always be happier. And they're like, you could always be angrier. So it doesn't work. So emotionally, you need to tune yourself to come to their level, meet them at their level. If you can meet someone at their level, I'm not saying energetically go down there. So if you're really happy and they're really angry, you don't have to get angry. You don't have to be a sympathetic listener. But what you can do is you can be an empathetic one, which means you can relate to their level. You don't have to go down to it. Sympathetic goes down to it. You can relate to it, and then you can work your way to bringing them up. But you cannot, under no circumstances, go to their level, be there with them, and think you're going to bring them up. You cannot do that. Sympathetic listeners are terrible listeners. Actually, it's not that they're terrible listeners. They're great listeners, but they're terrible problem solvers. They can't solve a problem. You can't solve the problem at the same level that you came into that problem at. You cannot. It's impossible. So there's where empathy comes in. Empathetic listeners can hear what you have to say, can relate to what you have to say, and then give better solutions on how to get out of it than someone who is sympathetic, period. Now that you understand the types of incongruencies, don't you get how this can change your communication and be able to relate to someone quicker and easier and get them to be on the same page as you, or conversely, so you're on the same page as them? So we covered two here. The first one is the words that we use, because in context to how we speak is how we want to be understood. That's why we say the words. That's why we use the words that we use, is because we're looking for someone to understand us based on those words. And if you can relate to that, if you can understand that, you can begin to use the proper verbiage or vocabulary to be better understood, whether for them to understand you, or conversely, for you to understand them. And then the second part of that is the aspect of energy, your emotional level. And when you're higher than someone emotionally, you need to be empathetic to them so that you can listen and understand them to raise them up. But on the flip side of that, if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're on the bottom side of that, it's much more difficult to, when you're talking to someone at such a high energy level, to want to move up. Often because you're angry with them, or maybe you're angry at something else altogether, but you're taking it out on someone else. But now realizing that you can do something to effectively change that. I cover this in an earlier show. Now, I don't have the show notes on me, or I'm not looking at them to tell you which episode, but I certainly cover this in an earlier episode. So if you haven't already, make sure you go back and listen to these shows. I have a lot of information that I cover that can really help transform not only the way you effectively speak to someone and go to be understood in life, but also in finding out who you are, what you're all about, and where you want to go. Because to me, this is everything. This is your life. You only have one of them that I'm aware of. At least right now, this is the only life that's important. If there are multiple lives, this is the only one that's important right now. It's the one that you're living right here, right now. And if I can help effectively transform where you are and help you get to where you want to be, then I've done my job. I really, truly appreciate each and every single one of you that spends time with me listening to these episodes. It means a lot to me. If you're listening on iTunes or YouTube or wherever, make sure you subscribe to the show. If you're on iTunes, leave feedback. I'd love to get your feedback. Rate this show. Let me know what you think of the show. That'd be awesome. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, get notified. This is Dave Dubé with Only One You Need Radio. It's time that you be the person you're meant to be. Believe in all that you're capable of and become more than you thought imaginable. I look forward to catching you on the next episode. Take care.